Bankruptcy, layoffs, shutdowns. That's the trend for solar companies in the U.S. Last month, this dark cloud reached the Pine Belt. In exactly 1 month, Stion, a solar panel maker in Forest County, will close its doors, putting more than 130 people out of work right before Christmas. The state auditor and attorney general will fight to get more than $74 million repaid. According to some, politics played a part in the shutdown with far-reaching ties outside of the U.S. Tonight, your local and state leaders explained why Stion closed and tell you how they would get your money back. And with those words, then Governor Haley Barbour led Mississippi into its ambitious endeavor into green energy in 2010. The legislature backed this hopeful venture by loaning biofuel corporation Kior $75 million to set up shop in Mississippi. Other green projects followed: Twin Creeks Technologies, Green Tech Automotive, and Stion. Fast forward 7 years later, a void. All the green projects failed. The latest bust close to home, Stion in Forest County. The company announced in October it will shut down on December 13th, killing more than 130 jobs at a time when one Stion worker says families need their pay the most.
Every operator in this building is really terrible, not knowing that you don't have a job for the holidays, and 2 weeks before Christmas you won't have a job at all.
Forest County Board of Supervisors President David Hogan says he was one of those people. He says Stion notified the county of the closure through this email. The reason, quote, intense and unfair competition from foreign manufacturers, end quote. But what does that mean?
Who knew that China was going to start making really inexpensive solar panels and flooding the U.S. market?
There was no way for Stion to make the panels in the United States as cheaply as the Chinese were able to, and therefore their market share suffered.
Both Hogan and the Forest County Board of Supervisors attorney David Miller says Mississippi's failed green energy plants are not an isolated case. It's a trend happening around the country.
And hopefully the national government's going to get those trade imbalances straightened out for us in the future. Until
then, the city of Hattiesburg says it's taking legal action to get its money back. As for the county, Miller says Stion's tax breaks total $2.3 million. And Stion has only handed over a little more than $200,000. But does that put a dent in their balance for both the county and city?
A little over $2 million left. About $800,000 of that is owed to Hattiesburg Public Schools, about $600,000 to the city of Hattiesburg, and the remainder to the county.
And the road to bring those funds back to Forest County start here at the state capitol, and it will be a fight led by State Auditor Stacey Pickering and the Attorney General.
Stion in particular, here in the Pine Belt, $75 million left holding the bag. That's the state's portion.
Mississippi State Auditor Stacey Pickering says Stion's $75 million bill to the state is just scratching the surface. According to the numbers from the auditor's office and the Mississippi Development Authority, since 2004, green jobs aren't the only failures leaving taxpayers' dollars on the hook.
Not just the green jobs, but all the other failed investments. Over $240 million.
Are you confident that you can get, for Stion specifically, the $75 million back?
No.
Pickering's firm answer is echoed by State Senator John Polk. Polk says, quote, usually in a situation such as this, those assets will be worth only pennies on the dollar and will not come close to repaying the entire amount. However, the state's Attorney General Jim Hood takes a resolute stance, saying in part, I intend to collect every dime owed to the taxpayers, plus the cost of litigation. And Governor Phil Bryant considers the failed green projects a lesson learned, stating in part, this serves as a good example of why the Bryant administration does not make sizable investments of taxpayer money in startups. Pickering wants the public to know the state has more success stories with industries than failures, but he says when it comes to investing in emerging technology companies, there has to be safeguards in place from start to finish. We reached out to Stion and they told me they would like to correct several factual errors that have appeared in several articles locally. Frank Yang, Vice President of Business Development and Marketing for Stion, says in part, Stion is selling the assets of the company through an assignment for the benefit of the creditors. Now, this means that a third party sells the assets and distributes the proceeds to creditors. Stion does not distribute or receive any of the proceeds. Now, he goes on to state in part, Stion has worked very actively on placement and other assistance for departing workers, end quote. Now, folks, the leaders I spoke with agree this issue of failed green companies runs deep, and this will take efforts from the state capitol to Capitol Hill for a remedy to the current solar industry. And to read everything Stion sent me and to see the full statements from officials I spoke with both on and off camera, find this story on WDAM.com.